Welcome to the EXP Group, one of the leading providers of business training solutions. Please enjoy this presentation and visit us on the web at www.theexpgroup.com for more information.
Okay, what we're going to have a look at next, introduce us to a number of different strategic models. And we're going to need to have an awareness and an understanding of these. Now, the first one I'm going to look at is by Johnson, Scholes and Whittington, JSW for short. This is going to be talking a bit about the rational model. The rational model is a very well-known strategic model, originally introduced by a gentleman called Anzoff. Anzoff originally, who's largely considered to be the father of corporate strategy, introduced this concept of the rational model. He said in the rational model there are 1, 2, 3 main areas within the rational model. The first one is analysis, the next one choice, and then finally implementation. So according to Anzoff, who originally introduced the rational model, it was a science. An organization should analyze things first, analyze what their stakeholders want, analyze strengths and weaknesses, analyze the environment. Once they've analyzed and finished with that, they then move on to choice. What choices do they have? Do they expand into new markets? Do they introduce new products? Once they've made the choice, we then have the final area of implementation. And that will introduce things such as change management, project management. Now, that was the rational model. Johnson, Scholes and Whittington, JSW, looked at it in a more modern way. Now, they looked at it and argued that it was actually more fluid. Although there still are the 3 areas of analysis, choice and implementation, it is not the same as what Anzoff said. It was where Anzoff said it was a very linear approach, where you analyzed, you then made your choice, and then you then implemented it. According to JSW, it was more fluid, and the 3 were more interactive with each other. So that's the first strategic model we're going to have a quick look at today in the syllabus, is the rational model. The next one, Henry Mintzberg. Now, Henry Mintzberg introduced something called the emergent strategy. Very well-known management theory, originally from Canada, born in Canada, Henry Mintzberg. Now, Henry Mintzberg did a lot of work on Honda, a lot of research into Honda's entry into the US market in the late 40s, early 1950s. Now, his research, he argued that when Honda went to America to compete directly with Harley Davidson, the big, powerful American bike, they were unsuccessful to start with. And instead, gradually over time, certain other things emerged. And as a result of that, Honda introduced smaller mopeds. Honda introduced the Honda Cub, which is a moped. So in other words, their initial idea was to launch big, powerful motorbikes to go head-to-head with Harley Davidson. That didn't work to start with, so they introduced the smaller mopeds. So a new strategy emerged over time. Once they'd launched the smaller motorbikes, they created a loyal following, and then gradually at a later stage, they introduced the bigger motorbikes. So, just to put this in words and to link it to the notes, Mintzberg's emergent strategies. Very few strategies will result in outcomes exactly as planned. Remember, Honda's original aim was to introduce big motorbikes. But instead, strategy will emerge and develop over time as the strategy evolves. And as a result of that, you will have intended, realized, and emergent strategies. Now, according to Mintzberg, in order for an emergent strategy to be successful, it has to be crafted. The organization has to craft it, has to guide it. And that's why the emergent strategy is sometimes known as a crafting strategy. So, we've so far looked at the rational model. We've also looked at Mintzberg's emergent strategy. The third one we're going to look at is Lindblom's incrementalism. Charles Lindblom, incrementalism. Logical incrementalism is the full story. But this argument, this view, this theory, it argues that strategy should be based on small incremental changes rather than a limited number of extensive planned strategies. So if, for example, we compare the rational model, and the rational model is a full-blown exercise where you have analysis, choice, implementation. It may be undertaken annually, once a year, or maybe even 6 monthly, but generally annually. Lindblom argues that there should be, instead of the formal rational strategic planning once a year, there should be small regular reviews and regular changes to the strategy. So it's logical, it's sensible, and incrementalism, small changes. So we've got the rational model, the emergent strategy, and incrementalism. These are all just different strategic ideas. It is not saying one is better than the other, it is just different methods. Introduce you now to something called freewheeling opportunism. Now generally this isn't very good. If you imagine you are in a car, you don't have any steering, you don't have any power, you are freewheeling down a hill. You suddenly see a turning, you've no idea where that is going to go, but you turn the car to go into it. Now, that is in effect what freewheeling opportunism is in strategy terms. You do not have a plan. You don't have objectives, you're just freewheeling. The business is freewheeling, and it will take advantage of opportunities as and when they occur. So, no planned strategy approach. You grab opportunities as and when they are identified. So again, generally these should be avoided. Freewheeling opportunism is not the best method. Next I'm going to have a look at JSW. You should remember these from earlier in the session. Johnson, Scholes and Whittington. Now the latest view is that they've introduced something called strategic lenses, which looks at strategy through the eyes of design, experience, and ideas. If you look at the next page, on page 10, page 10 provides a bit more information about this. So, JSW say, look, first of all, strategy is design, then strategy is experience, and then strategy is ideas. Now, first of all, if we think of this, strategy as design. Strategy is a process of design with logical, thought-out processes. So what this is, in effect, is a rational model. That's a design strategic model. Rational model, you analyze, you then make your choice, you then implement it. Strategy as experience. Strategy develops based on previous experiences. In effect, an emergent strategy. Remember, Mintzberg's emergent strategy said things will emerge, strategies will emerge. You won't get exactly what you were aiming for to start with. So that's the emergent strategy. And the next one is strategy as ideas. And this emphasizes that strategy comes from within the organization as opposed to the senior management. And it is focused on saying ideas are created at all levels of an organization. Now, according to JSW, these are 3 lenses that you should look through when analyzing what strategic approach to take. It's important, according to JSW, that you look through all 3, because there is no one right single method. All of it varies. Okay, so this is a very quick overview, the first chapter, introduces us to some of the key strategic models.